My son was recovering in a hospital bed when the old man in the next bed grabbed my wrist and said, "I heard what he was planning, and you need to know the truth." I thought he was confused, disoriented from the medication. I thought a lot of wrong things that week. Before I go any further, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is right now. It means more than you know. And just so you're aware, this story contains some fictionalized elements added for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to specific people or places is coincidental, but the lessons here are real and they're worth sitting with. Now, let me take you back to October. I was 64 years old and I had been retired for 2 years. After 30 years as a journeyman electrician with the same utility company out of Knoxville, Tennessee, I was done climbing poles. I had a 3-acre property out in Granger County, a vegetable garden that kept me busy from April to October, and a 1962 John Deere tractor I'd spent 18 months restoring from nothing. Life was quiet. That was the plan. My late wife, I lost her to ovarian cancer 6 years ago. She always said I didn't know how to rest. She was right. But by that October, I'd figured out how to be still, and I was okay with it. My son is 39. He sells commercial insurance, or he did. I won't say he was always a difficult kid because that wouldn't be honest. He was a good kid once, the kind who helped his little sister with homework without being asked, the kind who showed up on time when I needed him to move a fence post or fix a water line. He had a wife and a son of his own, 8 years old. Sharp as a tack. Looked like my wife when she was young, around the eyes. I got the call on a Wednesday. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. I get a lot of roofing company calls ever since I put my number on an estimate form 3 years ago. But something made me pick up. "Is this Jerome Sutton?" "It is." "Mr. Sutton, this is Parkway Regional Medical Center. Your son has been involved in a motor vehicle accident on I-40. He's in our emergency department. He's stable, but you'll want to come in." I don't remember what I said back. I remember setting my coffee cup down very carefully, like that mattered. Like being deliberate about one small thing would keep the rest of the world from spinning. Then I went to my truck. The drive was 22 minutes. It felt like crossing a state line. They'd put him in a shared room on the 3rd floor, head injury from where the airbag deployed, 3 cracked ribs, a concussion that had the doctors watching him close. When I walked in, he was half awake, face swollen on the left side, IV in his arm. He looked smaller than I'd seen him in years. Not like a 39-year-old man. Like the kid who cried in the parking lot the day he didn't make the high school baseball team. "Hey, Dad." His voice was thick. "I'm here," I said, and I pulled a chair right up to the edge of his bed and sat down. There was a curtain dividing the room. On the other side, I could hear someone breathing, shifting in the bed now and then. No television, no voices, no visitors coming in or out. In 36 hours of sitting in that room, not one person came to check on whoever was behind that curtain. I noticed it the first day but didn't say anything. Wasn't my place. Second morning around 7, I went down to the cafeteria and bought 2 coffees and a couple of biscuits. I wasn't hungry, but I hadn't eaten since the day before. And the nurse on shift had given me a look that said she'd seen plenty of fathers wear themselves down waiting. When I came back up, I stopped at the curtain. "Excuse me," I said, quiet as I could. "I don't want to intrude, but I've got an extra cup of coffee here if you want it." Silence for a moment. "Then what kind?" "Black, but I've got sugar packets." "Roll it over." I pulled the curtain aside. The man on the other side was maybe 77, 78 years old. Thin. White hair cut short, military short, the kind of cut that says habit more than style. He had the look of a man who'd spent a life outdoors. Not tan exactly, but weathered in that permanent way. His name on the whiteboard behind his bed said Wendell. "Jerome," I said, offering my hand. He shook it, firm grip. "Wendell Pruitt, what are you in here for?" "Son's in the next bed, concussion, cracked ribs." He nodded slowly. "How bad?" "Could have been worse. He'll be home by the weekend if everything holds." "Good." He took the coffee, wrapped both hands around it. "I'm waiting on a procedure. Hip replacement. They've moved me twice already. Keeps getting pushed back." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Don't be. Gives me time to finish my book." He gestured at a worn paperback on the bedside table. "Third time reading it. Always find something new." I liked him immediately. That's simple. Some people you just know. I sat with him for half an hour that morning, and then every morning after that. He'd been a career Army man. 2 tours in Korea, stateside after that, retired as a sergeant major. He'd lost his wife 11 years ago, had a daughter out in Oregon who called twice a week but couldn't get away from work to visit. "It's all right," he said without any self-pity. "She's got 2 kids of her own. I don't need the fuss." My son slept most of those days. The The concussion made him tired, and the doctors wanted him resting anyway. When he was awake, we talked, or I talked, and he answered in the short way he'd been talking to me for the past couple of years. One-word answers, a lot of looking at his phone. I told myself it was the injury, the medication, the stress of recovering. I told myself a lot of things. The third night, I woke up in the recliner they'd brought in for me, neck stiff, back aching. The room was dark except for the blue light of a monitor. My son was awake on the other side of the room. I could see him in the dimness, not asleep, propped up, phone in his hand, talking low. I heard pieces of it, not all of it, just pieces. No, I told you, I'll have it by end of the month. Dad's got the whole account sitting there. He doesn't even log in online. No, he won't know until it's already done. Just give me 3 weeks. Then he glanced over, saw my eyes open, and said into the phone, I'll call you back. He set the phone face down on the blanket. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. You didn't, I said. Go back to sleep. He did, or he pretended to. I lay there in that recliner for a long time staring at the ceiling. My son's words going around and around in my head. He won't know until it's already done. In the morning, I was pouring coffee at the cart in the hallway when I felt a hand on my arm. Wendell. He'd walked himself out in a hospital gown and slippers, moving slow but steady. I need to tell you something, he said, about your son. I looked at him. Wendell. I heard him, last night and the night before. He's been on that phone when he thinks you're sleeping. He held my eyes. I'm not trying to get into your family's business, but I've been in a situation like yours, and nobody warned me. He paused. So I'm warning you. I didn't want to hear it. I could feel the resistance in my chest, that physical pushing away that happens when you're about to be told something your heart already knows, but your brain hasn't agreed to yet. He's your son, I said. You might have misheard. He was medicated. I know what I heard. Wendell's voice was calm. Not angry, not insistent, just certain. Do with it what you want, but don't say nobody told you. He walked back into the room. I stood in that hallway with my coffee and watched him go. I truly appreciate you being here. Before we continue, drop a comment. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are right now? I read every single one. My son was discharged on a Friday. The doctor went over everything. Follow-up in 2 weeks, no driving, light activity. My son nodded and shook the doctor's hand and said yes to every instruction, and I stood by the window watching traffic on the highway below, thinking about what Wendell had said. His wife was already in the parking lot waiting when we came through the lobby doors, car running, earbuds in. She gave my son a long hug. She nodded at me. Thanks, Jerome. That was it. Not Dad, even though we'd been family for 11 years. Just Jerome. Like I was someone who'd come to read the electric meter. I'll follow you home, I said. Help get him settled. My son shook his head. We're good, Dad. Really, you've been here 3 days. Go home and rest. His wife was already back in the car. I don't mind. Dad, his voice was flat, final, we're good. I stood in that parking lot and watched them pull away. The sun was out, but the air was cold. That particular October cold in East Tennessee that gets into your bones before you realize it. When I went back upstairs to get my bag, Wendell's side of the room was empty. Curtain pushed back, bed stripped. A nurse told me they'd gotten him into pre-op. A slot had opened up. I was glad for him. But on his pillow, folded once, was a note on a hospital notepad. 4 words, don't ignore your gut. And underneath the note, a pocket knife. Old bone handle worn smooth from years of carrying. The kind of knife a man keeps because his father kept one before him. I stood there holding it, turned it over in my palm. Then I put it in my shirt pocket and walked out. 10 days passed. I went back to my property, back to my routine. My son didn't call. When I reached out, he texted back. Fine. Busy. Talk soon. The kind of answers that say nothing and everything at the same time. I kept Wendell's note folded in my wallet. The knife I put on my nightstand. Every morning I saw it when I reached for my reading glasses, and every morning his voice came back to me. Don't say nobody told you. My daughter called from Nashville like she did every Sunday. She's a nurse. She's good at reading people even over a phone. And after about 2 minutes, she said, Dad, what's wrong? I told her I was fine. She didn't push. That's her way. It was a routine trip to my bank branch in Jefferson City that cracked it open. I'd gone in to get a cashier's check for my property tax. Same branch, same window, same woman who's been handling my accounts for 9 years. That morning, she frowned at her screen for a second too long. Mr. Sutton, did you set up a recurring transfer on this account? No, I don't do those. She turned the monitor toward me. $8,000 gone from my checking account 2 weeks prior to an account labeled CSS Financial Sutton. My legs went cold. When did that go through? October 14th. She clicked again. There was one in August as well, $6,200, and one in June, $4,500. $18,700 over 4 months. All while I'd been in my garden, fixing my tractor, drinking my coffee, and thinking my son was busy with work. Who authorized these? The authorization shows your online banking credentials. She looked at me carefully. Did you give anyone your login? My son had helped me set up online banking the previous spring. He'd said it would make things easier. He'd sat at my kitchen table with his laptop and set up the account and written down my password on a notepad. He'd said, "This way you can check your balance anytime, Dad. You don't have to drive all the way in." I told her to freeze the account. I drove home and sat in my kitchen for a long time. Then I called my lawyer. I'd used Baxter for 30 years. He handled my wife's estate. He knew me and he knew my family. He picked up on the second ring. "Baxter," I said, "I think my son is stealing from me." A pause, not a shocked pause. The pause of a man who wants to choose his next words exactly right. "Tell me everything," he said. I did. I told him about the hospital, about Wendell's warning, about the phone call I'd overheard, about the transfers, about the login. Baxter listened without interrupting, which is why I've trusted him for 30 years. When I finished, he said, "Stop using that account entirely today. Open a new one, new credentials, tell nobody. And I want you to call a man named Vance Colbert. He's an investigator. I've worked with him on cases like this before. He's good and he's discreet." I met Vance the next afternoon at a coffee shop in Morristown. He was around 50, unremarkable looking in the best possible way, the kind of face you'd forget if you weren't paying attention, which I suspected was useful in his line of work. He had a legal pad and he listened more than he talked. "What do you know about your son's finances?" he asked. "Nothing," I admitted. I never asked. "Do you know his spending habits? Any changes in the past year?" I thought about it. The new truck, paid cash, which I'd thought nothing of at the time. A vacation to Cancun last spring, which his wife had posted pictures of online. His son enrolled in a private school starting that fall, which I'd assumed my son had worked hard to afford. "He's a salesman," I said, "commission-based. I just assumed business was good." "Okay," Vance made a note, "give me a week." The week was the longest of my life. I went about my routine, garden, tractor, a neighbor's wood fence that needed replacing. I called my son twice. Both times he answered, both times the conversation lasted less than 4 minutes. Both times he found a reason to get off the line. I said nothing about the accounts. Baxter had been very clear. Say nothing until you know everything. Vance called me on a Thursday evening. "I need you to see something. Can you come in tomorrow?" I drove to his office. He had a folder on his desk, and he opened it the way you open something you wish you didn't have to show anyone. My son had a sports betting problem, not a hobby, a catastrophic consuming addiction. Vance had pulled records from multiple platforms, the kind that are everywhere now, on every phone, advertising during every football game. The numbers I was looking at made me grip the arms of my chair. Over 14 months my son had wagered, and lost, close to $190,000. He'd started small, the way these things start, then it compounded the way they're designed to compound. He'd taken out loans, made minimum repayments, taken out bigger loans. He owed a private lender $91,000. Interest accruing at a rate that Vance described, without flinching, as loan shark territory. He needed money, I said. He needed money 6 months ago. Now he needs a lot of money fast. Vance turned to the next page. Printed emails, the kind you get from cloud records. My son and his wife, going back 7 months. She knew. That was the thing I kept having to sit with. She had known for months. In one email, my son had written, "Dad has $280,000 in his retirement account, and the house is paid off. That property alone is worth $250,000. If we can get him to add me to the accounts, we can start moving things gradually. He checks in maybe once a year. He'll never notice in time." His wife had written back, "What if he does notice?" My son's reply, "Then we figure it out. But he trusts me. That's the whole point." I sat there in Vance's office reading my son's words about me like I was reading a report on a stranger. He trusts me. That's the whole point. Vance set the folder down. "There's one more thing," he said, his voice dropping slightly. 3 weeks ago, a term life insurance application was filed with a carrier out of Nashville. The insured is you, Jerome. The policy value is $400,000. I looked at him. "Your son is listed as the primary beneficiary." The room went very quiet, the kind of quiet that has weight. "I didn't sign anything." "I know. The signature on the application doesn't match your notarized samples. It's close, but not close enough." He paused. "I've already sent what I have to Baxter, and Baxter has been in contact with the Knox County Sheriff's Financial Crimes Unit. I drove home along the river, October light on the water, bare hills. Everything looked the same as it always looked. My driveway, my mailbox, my 3-acre lot with the vegetable beds put to rest for winter. I sat in my truck and held Wendell's pocket knife, old bone handle, smooth from decades of carrying. Don't ignore your gut. I'd ignored it, even after the warning, even after the note. I'd given my son the benefit of every doubt I had and then gone looking for more doubts to give him. I called my daughter. She answered in 2 rings because she worries about me, and she's never been shy about it. "Hey, Dad, everything okay? I need to tell you something about your brother," I said. The silence that followed was the kind that tells you she'd been wondering when this call was coming. She drove up from Nashville the next morning. 6 hours. She pulled into my driveway at 7 a.m. and walked in without knocking and made us both coffee without asking where I kept anything, because she already knew, because this is still her father's house and she'd never forgotten that. I showed her everything: Vance's folder, Baxter's notes, the emails, the insurance application. When she finished reading, she set the papers down very carefully and said, "What do you need from me, Dad?" Not "I can't believe it," not "Are you sure?" just "What do you need?" "Stay," I said, "for a while." Already planned on it. The following week, I called my son. Acted like nothing had changed. Told him I'd been going through some paperwork and thought it might make sense to simplify things while I was still sharp enough to do it. Would he want to come by Saturday and help me look at some documents? He said he'd be there. Baxter arranged everything. He drafted a set of documents that looked legitimate. A property trust transfer with my son's name on it. To someone who wanted to believe what they were seeing, they looked like everything my son had been working toward. Vance coordinated with the Financial Crimes Unit. 2 detectives would be parked down the road. Baxter himself would be in my kitchen. My son arrived at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, dressed casually, relaxed. He shook my hand, complimented the property the way he always did when he wanted something from me. We sat at the kitchen table where his mother used to pay the bills. I slid the folder across the table. I figured it'd be easier to set up a trust while I'm still around to make the decisions, I said. "My lawyer put these together. Take a look." He opened the folder. He didn't look up for a long time. When he did, his face was arranged very carefully into something that looked like gratitude. "Dad, this is..." "Sign where the tabs are," I said. "Baxter needs it back by Monday." He picked up the pen. That was when Baxter walked in from the kitchen, and the 2 detectives came in from the front hallway, where my daughter had let them in through the side door 60 seconds earlier. My son looked at me across the table, the pen still in his hand. "Dad?" "Put the pen down, son." He did, slowly. The detectives were professional, calm. My son stood up and they guided him toward the door, and he didn't say anything. In every version of that moment I'd imagined, he said something. But in real life, he just went quiet and let them walk him out. I stood at my front door and watched the car pull out of the driveway. My daughter came and stood beside me and put her hand on my arm. Neither of us spoke for a while. The case took 4 months to build and 3 days to try. The forgeries were the center of it. Baxter had forensic document experts who laid it out for the jury piece by piece. The Financial Crimes Unit had the full picture of the betting accounts and the private loans. Vance testified. The insurance company testified. The lender, who had his own legal complications and was glad to cooperate, testified. My son's attorney argued stress addiction, temporary impairment of judgment. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Guilty on 8 counts: wire fraud, financial elder abuse, forgery, fraudulent application of a life insurance policy. 11 years, he'd be 50 when he got out. I sat in that courtroom and felt everything and nothing at the same time. I thought about my wife. I thought about the day my son was born, how I'd held him in that delivery room and been so terrified of dropping something that fragile. I thought about all the years between that day and this one, and how many of them had been good years, real years, before whatever went wrong in him went all the way wrong. His wife pleaded guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for her cooperation. Suspended sentence, probation, a fine. She has custody of my grandson. I see him on video call on Sunday evenings. He's doing well in school. He draws me pictures and mails them. He's resilient the way children are when they have at least one steady person in their corner. I have to believe people can change. I have to. My daughter stayed through the winter. She took a leave from her job in Nashville, and we settled into a kind of life I hadn't expected to find at 64. Breakfast together every morning. Drives out to Norris Lake on weekends where we'd sit on a dock and not say much. Just sit. She helped me go through every financial account I had, lock everything down, put protections in place that should have been there years ago. One afternoon in February, I asked her the question I'd been sitting with since October. Do you think I should have known sooner? She looked at me for a long moment. You're asking the wrong question, Dad. What's the right one? Whether you know now. I did know now, in a way I couldn't unknow. In the spring, I tracked down Wendell. 6 phone calls and 2 offices I'd never been in before, but I found him. Knoxville Veterans Home, out on Kingston Pike. He'd come through the hip surgery fine, was in physical therapy 3 days a week, doing well. I showed up on a Tuesday with coffee from the good place downtown, the one that roasts their own beans, and a jar of tomato preserves I'd put up the previous summer. Wendell was sitting by a window when I walked in. He looked the same, weathered, alert, white hair still military short. When he saw me, he nodded like he'd been half expecting it. Jerome Sutton, he said, took you long enough. I sat down and handed over the coffee and the jar. He looked at the jar. Garden tomatoes? August crop, better than last year. He set it on the table. How'd it go? I told him. All of it. He listened without interrupting, without softening what he heard with sympathy or judgment. When I finished, he was quiet a moment. 11 years, he said. 11 years. He nodded slowly. What are you going to do with the time you've got left? I'd been thinking about that since the trial. My daughter had been pushing me towards something, gently, the way she pushes things she believes in. I've been asked to speak, I said, at the senior center over in Corrigan. Monthly program, financial safety, protecting yourself from family fraud. Someone in their network heard about what happened to me. Wendell looked at me, and I said yes. He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into the drawer of his bedside table and pulled something out. Set it on the table between us. The pocket knife. I looked at him. I have that. You left it for me in the hospital. No. He shook his head. I left you a note on a hospital pad. That knife has been in my pocket for 51 years. My sergeant gave it to me the day I came back from my second tour. He pushed it toward me. I want you to have it now. For real this time. I picked it up. Same bone handle, same weight. Wendell. You said yes to that speaking engagement, he said. That means somebody's going to need to hear something true from you, and they're going to be scared to believe it because it's about their own family. Same as you were scared. He held my eyes. Keep the knife. Remember what it cost you to learn what you know, and then tell them anyway. I held it in my palm for a long time. Then I put it in my shirt pocket, where it's been every day since. I've spoken at 13 senior centers and community programs now. I've talked to people who came in skeptical and left shaken, people who recognized their own story in mine before I was halfway through. I've had men my age grab my hand afterward and hold on for a moment longer than a handshake because they needed something solid to hold on to while they decided whether to do the hard thing. What I tell them is this: the love you have for your children is not a weakness, but it can be used against you. And if the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you're afraid to look at clearly, that fear will cost you everything they're willing to take. I'm 65 now. I grow tomatoes. I have a 3-acre property in Granger County and a 1962 John Deere I'm still not finished restoring, and I may never finish it. And that's all right. My daughter calls me every night, even when there's nothing to say. My grandson draws me pictures and mails them from across town, and I write back every time and tell him I'm proud of him and I love him, because he deserves to know that. Even if his father can't be there, even if things are complicated, he deserves to be loved without conditions attached. Every morning when I reach for my reading glasses on the nightstand, I see Wendell's knife. I pick it up. I think about what he said. Then I get up and start the day. That's all you can do. Start the day. Stay awake. Trust the people who've earned it, and be honest with yourself about the ones who haven't. You can still love someone and know they've become dangerous to you. You can grieve what you lost and protect what's left. Those two things can live in the chest at the same time. I know because they live in mine. God gave me 3 warnings in this story. Wendell's words at that curtain, the note he left on the pillow, and that moment when I held the evidence in my hands and still, for just 1 week, wanted to believe it wasn't true. I ignored the first warning. I hesitated at the second. By the third, I was almost out of time. Don't be like me. Don't wait for the third warning to listen. If this story reached you, leave a comment. Tell me where you are. Tell me if something here felt familiar. And if you know someone who needs to hear it, a parent, a friend, anyone sitting in a hospital chair right now wondering why something doesn't feel right, share it with them. Sometimes the warning comes from the strangest places. Sometimes it's the old man in the next bed who sees what you can't see yet. Trust your gut. Trust the knife in your pocket and the note on the pillow. Those things are there for a reason. And remember, protecting yourself is not a betrayal of the people you love. Sometimes it's the only honest thing left to do.